A biblical perspective on life, culture and current events. This is 2020 on Vision.
Hey, I wonder how concerned you are about the erosion of free speech. And you might even say the invasion of your privacy. Well, it seems Australian concerns are growing as cases come to light that show speaking biblical truth publicly can carry the risk of losing your career in modern Australia. And what do we make of the ban on social media for under 16s, including the latest announcement, really just in this last 24 hours, that YouTube is to be included in the mix of those social media platforms banned for those teenagers under the age of 16? Well, our special guest today says there are some interconnected trends that are linked to the loss of our freedoms. Freedoms are disappearing at the same time as the rise of the surveillance state. And whether it's the expanding powers of the E-Safety Commissioner or online monitoring of doctors and journalists or MPs, it appears that Big Brother is watching and monitoring and suppressing what you and I might consider to be truth. Well, George Christensen is back with us today. You'll know him, not afraid to speak his mind, often very controversial. Served 3 terms in the Australian Parliament with the LNP. He's the Australian Campaigns Director for Citizen Go, and he's the founder of Nation First. George Christensen, a special welcome back to 2020.
Well, thank you very much for having me, Neil, and let's pray that God keeps the tech going. I'm sorry I've had some issues this morning, but we're here, mate.
We're here, and let's hope it all stays nice and clear. Hey, George, eroding freedoms, affecting everyone, but it does have a chilling effect, doesn't it, on people who hold to a Christian faith. Our values are not changing, but societal values are changing, and there are consequences. How are you feeling about the erosion of freedoms in Australia?
I'm feeling dismayed is the word, and you know, quite honestly, I actually had an online conversation with Dr. Jereth Koch yesterday, and I said to him something that's actually been on my heart for quite some time now. And Neil, I can't understand, really, I can't personally understand why society and governments in particular and the institutions of democracy are drifting in this anti-free speech trend. It bewilders me. It really does bewilder me. And I described it in my Nation First newsletter this week as a new form of heresy, actually, that's developed. If you are against the existing orthodoxy, that is, tolerance for everyone except those they think who are intolerant, and that includes traditional Christians and conservatives, then if you don't abide by that, then you're in trouble. And, I mentioned Jereth Koch. Look no further than what's happened to him in the past few days, where the VCAT, the Victorian Civil and Administrative Tribunal, actually upheld a decision, or actually approved basically a decision by the medical board to try and strip him completely of his profession as a GP, as a general practitioner. And why did they do that? I mean, you might think, well, that's something that would boil down to professional misconduct, doing something bad, something wrong, perhaps something that was a critical error medically, or, some sexual impropriety or something like that. But it was none of those things. What it boiled down to was privately, I want to underscore that term, privately sharing social media posts on his Facebook page. That is what it come down to. And what were these posts? Well, they were posts on topics such as, the LGBTIQ lobby, such as transgenderism, such as abortion. So having views that's against the current orthodoxy on those issues can now in Australia see you legally stripped of your profession, of your livelihood, of the thing that puts bread and butter on the table for your family. We should all be very, very concerned about this.
You're raising such an important case. And as you say, just these last few days, Dr. Jereth Koch, and this goes back to 2019, And
Indeed.
it does appear to be, on the surface of what we understand about his case, and we've talked about it a number of times over the years and various guests on this program, that he is targeted. And it seems to be that when you come under the review process, everything you've ever said is brought into some sort of context. And like an inquisition, it's then used against you. And if you said something 5 years ago, which was perfectly fine and politically correct then, but 5 years later it's not even politically correct now, you're going to be interpreted in the current way of being politically incorrect.
That's right.
But when you're under the guise of bureaucrats here, and the rise of surveillance, because there's access to all of these details, things that we have all said at different times, you could be in trouble. So what are your thoughts here? Because this is something that it hasn't taken us by surprise, but now we're starting to see the fruit of that in Dr. Jereth Cock.
Yeah. Well, look, putting Dr. Jereth's case to the side and going to your point about the surveillance state, look, we're moving down a track where and I'm going to say on face value, many people might support the idea of age limiting social media. I mean, I sort of agree with that. I think it's up to parents to police it myself. We don't want the government to become the parent, the mum or dad for our children. That's disastrous. And we see, what happens when mum or dad decides to be the parent in some of the state government-run schools where there's, inappropriate things that are told to children. But nonetheless, have a look at where this is heading. Look at the UK, where they've actually now just adopted this age verification process where you have to have some form of government ID or even worse still, biometric scanning to access a social media site. And what you're finding is that it's being linked back to tracking. And, you are going to fall afoul of the police should certain commentary be deemed unlawful, like a hate crime. If you say a man is a man and can never be a woman, that might fall into the definition of hate crime in the future. It's not that controversial to actually say that. You can see it coming. So this is the problem where we're ending up, and we're ending up with a lot of political commentary that's on platforms like Facebook and X that are now coming up with posts saying you cannot see this post. This post has now been removed from your view until we have age verification. So it is quite clearly right now stopping political commentary. That's where this is going, and it's gone there very fast in the UK. Within the first month of the adoption of these laws, it's gone in that direction. And people are saying it's going to be very soon before it goes in the direction of a policeman knocking on your door saying, hey, we noticed you posted this material, which, is not allowed. We're not talking about stuff that's utterly violent or graphic sexually or anything like that. We're talking about political commentary that just goes against the current orthodoxy, Neil.
Well, George, the question has to come, it's all speculation, perhaps, but we might say, is this accidental? Is this something that's driving those representatives we have in Canberra or in our state parliaments, or as we're talking the UK as well? But is this accidental, or are our leaders moving us this way in a determined way? Is it an intentional thing that's happening here, whereby they realise that our freedoms are being taken away because of this rise of a surveillance state?
Look, let me be gracious and just say that I think a lot of politicians, and I would put, former Leader of the Opposition, Peter Dutton, in this category, former police officer, he strongly supported the idea of age verification of social media. Even though I vehemently disagreed with it, I would accept that he was most likely coming at it from the point of view of protecting children. Being a former policeman, you probably see some very disgraceful stuff when it comes to those who target children. And, his mind and a lot of other the minds of other politicians would be going there when they declare support for this kind of thing. The problem with it is that I think that you are right, and do I have the receipts to prove it? No, I don't, but nonetheless, we just got to look at where this has trended in other countries, and where it's trended is it quickly morphs into this censorship regime and a surveillance regime where they're finding out who is actually posting what and then doing something about it through police action. And, it's sold to us on the basis that, no, this is just simply about stopping children from accessing websites, but then quickly morphs into political censorship and then also political persecution, quite frankly, where if you've publicly expressed a certain view, you will be found out. They have de-anonymised the internet, which is something that when the internet first sprung up, there was a lot of hope that this would invigorate democracies because it would allow free expression, and it would having people being able to anonymously comment on things actually helps people like whistleblowers. It has the negatives as well, where you get keyboard warriors, but nonetheless, people who might have access to some knowledge that wouldn't otherwise say that knowledge publicly because of fear of persecution, they could do it on the internet to a degree with some level of anonymity now that is being completely and utterly eroded by governments.
Helping you make sense of life, culture and current events from a biblical perspective. 2020 on Vision.
Hey, George, we're in deep waters here. It is a controversial topic. We're talking about the rise of a surveillance state, and that might lead us to thinking about, what sort of data about us is being stored. And from what I understand, there are even anti-hate databases that have been developed. What's your understanding of these things?
Mm. Well, it's I'm sure that there are already databases that are unofficially on record that keep this sort of stuff, whether it's in the hands of state police forces or perhaps even ASIO, who knows. But nonetheless, nothing formal. And that is about to become a different kettle of fish. The Albanese government, that is, has already approved or agreed to implementing a new national database which will capture anti-hate. Now, this is an interesting term. What do they mean by that? Well, where this stems from is the so-called plan to combat anti-Semitism. And look, I know that probably many of your listeners have a great degree of sympathy with any plan that would combat anti-Semitism in this country, and they might even have a great degree of sympathy with the State of Israel. Nonetheless, actually, what has been proposed to the government through this plan is that not only does anti-hate in the context of anti-Semitism include commentary about Jewish peoples, but it would also include some commentary around the State of Israel. And I think that probably, that certainly does start to blur the lines. But look, let's put anti-Semitism to the side, because the government has actually said that they're going to consider all of this holistically with another plan they've got coming to them, which is the plan to combat Islamophobia. So if you thought that it's a good thing we can have this national anti-hate database and, target those people who are targeting the Jews, well, wait a second, it's actually going to be also targeting those people who are targeting the Jews. That's the crazy thing here. So suddenly anything you say about Islam, for instance, that isn't a crime to say, but could be construed by some authority, and I don't know who that might be, but some authority, as hatred against Muslims, will suddenly find you in this database.
Yeah, we'll talk some more about that. Hey, let's squeeze in a call or two if we can before the news. Let's hear from Adam in Marysville in Victoria. Hey, Adam, welcome.
Hi, Neil. How are you? And What's our guest name
George.
again?
George is our guest.
George. Hey, George.
Need to be quick here. What are your thoughts, Adam?
My comment is on, you mentioned bio scanning before.
Yep.
Biometric surveillance, yep.
Yep. I know that, well, our cats and dogs and animals and fish even, they have, you put microchips in them to keep track of them. And what's stopping the government introducing this technology that's already out there, and we've already got the technology on our phones where you pay your grocery bill.
Adam, good thought here. Let's get a thought here from George, because my suspicion is that when we're talking about biometric scanning, this is even a development on what's happening with our pets. But George, thoughts here for Adam?
Oh, Adam's on the money. Actually, they don't need to actually put the chip in us because we carry it around in our pockets these days. You're right, on the mobile, which does just about everything like that. So that's worrying in itself. But, will it go there? I mean, that's going to be up to, I think, the population. I don't think there's going to be a government diktat that comes out and enforces us to get a microchip. But you see some European countries where their citizens already line up willingly to do it, because actually there's inducements to doing it. This is going to make life more convenient for you. You're going to get some benefit out of it, whatever. Whether it's that approach or something a little bit less sinister like digital ID, I think that unfortunately we're going to see great swathes of the population, the majority probably, accepting things like digital ID or having a microchip embedded into your hand simply because of the convenience, and maybe it enables something for you to get off government or private services. I don't know. But that is the way things are going. It's not crazy talk anymore. That's the way things are going.
Hey, George, what we talk about for the future, is there some sort of way that when we're looking at other nations, and I think particularly like the UK, are they a step or two ahead of where things are at? Under Sir Keir Starmer's Labor government in the UK, is there some comparison you can make here, or are they, are they the blueprint for where we might be headed here in Australia?
Well, absolutely, Neil. And before that, mate, could I just pull you up? It was 4 terms. I don't want to knock off that 4th term because it was the biggest swing that I got.
Okay, all right. Those things are important.
But no, mate. Look, it is. You make a very good point. Let me give you a personal story about my friend who I work with in Citizen Go. Her name is Caroline Farrow. Caroline is one of those women who's in the unusual situation that she's married to a Catholic priest. She was formerly married to an Anglican priest who converted to Catholicism, so now she's the quintessential vicar's wife in the Roman Catholic setting. So here she is, a few years ago, doing the Sunday roast dinner for the family. Might not have been a Sunday, but whatever day, she was doing a roast chicken dinner, cooking it, and there's a knock on the door, and it's the local constabulary. And they are coming to arrest her in front of her family as she's cooking dinner for the crime of allegedly posting something, since she didn't even post it, allegedly posting something on Twitter, as it was then, or X now, that was seen as hatred against transgendered people. So that's where it has gone in Britain. And she's not Robinson Crusoe in terms of getting that knock on the door. There are pensioners that get that knock on the door. There are veterans that get that knock on the door. There are mums and dads. There are people from all walks of life who get knocks on the door from what they're posting on social media. I think in the last year that they did the full records of, and that might have been 2023, there were over I'm going to have to fact check myself here, but I'm pretty sure that there were over 4,000 arrests for posting on social media in the UK. That makes Russia look like a free country. That's how bad it is. And so if you want to know where this is all going, look at the UK, because all the laws they've got in place are all the laws that are being proposed here right now.
Taking calls on 1800 316 316. Let's take some more calls, shall we? Steve is in Canberra. Been waiting patiently. Hey, Steve, welcome along.
G'day, Neil. Long-time listener. Appreciate your show.
Great stuff, Steve. Hey, what's your contribution, or have you got a question for George?
My point is that from personal circumstance, I have a mate who used to be an ASIO operative agent, and I'm walking a dog, so I'm a bit puffed. And he used to talk about the weaponisation of our mobile and electronic devices that would ultimately see the loss of freedoms and the checking of our how we run our lives. It's interesting to see that it's coming to fruitage what he said in the mid-90s. I guess I'd love to know from George, do we as consumers buck the trend and minimise using our devices, or turn them off and cover the cameras and do other things like that?
Good thought here, Steve. George, weaponisation of our mobile devices. Do we stop using them to their potential, because that might actually be something that saves us ultimately?
It's certainly one solution. Maybe not a solution to everyone, because the problem, Neil, is that these have become part of our life. They've become ubiquitous. Like you needed to do banking, you needed to, communicate with loved ones. We've ingrained them so much into our life. And the question is, how would we live without them for some people? But sure, if you're not attached to a mobile device, if you have the ability to disconnect, that is certainly one solution.
Steve, anything more to add?
No, look, I'd just say thank you for the opportunity of raising this profile to the community. I think individual IDs and the government in overreaching is definitely starting to occur and becoming very obvious with those who are either David Icke and or Alex Jones occasional reference listeners. I'd just say thanks for bringing it to the community's attention.
Good on you, Steve. Thanks so much for your call. Steve in Canberra, 1800 316 316. To join in our conversation, send us a text on 0447 488 316. Let's take another call. Dee is in Kingston in Tasmania. Hello, Dee. Welcome along.
Oh, hello. I'm actually in the northwest of Tasmania, but that's okay.
Wonderful.
Good morning, George. Good and hello, Neil. My comment is, we fought wars for the freedoms, and it's just so heartbreaking that people don't understand what those wars were really about. Roosevelt put forward the 4 freedoms. I think it was Roosevelt. He promoted that as justification for America fighting in World War II to protect the things that we're seeing so quickly eroded now. I just wondered if you could comment on that, George.
George, on the freedoms?
I can, because when I was a member of Parliament, I distinctly remember having a conversation with a digger, with a guy that fought for this country in Vietnam, and you don't even have to go far back as World War II, although certainly that was the case then. I mean, for Australia, it was an existential threat to its democracy, to its freedom, that was being posed by imperialist Japan, which was a totalitarian country. But we look again to Vietnam, and the men that went over there were being told this is to stop the spread of communism so that Australia remains a free country because of the potential domino effect of communism throughout Southeast Asia that could then perhaps reach our shores here in Australia. And this guy would say to me, as he would look to see, new things being brought up by governments that just undermine freedom, he said, I scratch my head and wonder, what did I go to fight for? And that's very sad that we actually have men and women who got shot at, that perhaps got injured, perhaps others that have loved ones that lost their lives in those wars that are now thinking, what was it all for? It's very, very sad. And I go back to what I said at the beginning of this. Personally, I cannot understand, I cannot fathom why governments and institutions of government, democratic institutions and, professors and all the rest of them, people who are cultural influencers, I guess, think that it is a good idea to curtail the views and opinions of people just simply because they don't like what they're saying. I mean, if that is your view, you are not in favour of free speech. You are not in favour of democratic discourse. And quite frankly, you are turning our country into something that it's not, into something that actually our forefathers fought against our country becoming.
Dee in Kingston, anything further from you, Dee?
Yes, thank you so much, George. I completely agree. I wonder if people know what the 4 freedoms are, and if I could just say them out loud. Is that okay?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Do it
Go
quickly,
ahead.
but what are they?
All right. So freedom of speech and expression, freedom of worship, freedom from want, and freedom from fear.
Made famous by the Norman Rockwell paintings.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. And I think people don't understand it's an education issue too, isn't it, George, that we don't have people being taught what this means and how to maintain those freedoms and how important Christianity is as fundamental to driving that.
Right. And that's because it went out of our schools, long ago. I mean, civics sort of and social studies and the understanding of what guides a democracy, what underpins a democracy, are just not taught to the extent that they were even probably 20 years ago.
And even courses on Western civilization and this idea that all cultures are equal is part of it, isn't it? That we don't understand the wonderful history of Western civilization, and that's being eroded. So people are a bit lost. They're trying to find equality, but without a foundation for it.
Not just being eroded. I think you touched one of the core problems there, Dee, where you sort of hinted of relativism when it comes to the civilization that we're actually in. I mean, it goes even worse than that. I think now there is a concerted campaign by many to demonise Western civilization, that we should feel ashamed of ourselves because all of our institutions and our style of democracy is based on the views of, old dead white men. And that's the kind of language that they use, actually, the people that try to undermine Western civilization. So I think that there's a very big problem going on that is leading to the kinds of things we're seeing today and leading to public support for tackling so-called misinformation, which is just a cute jargon term for limiting free speech. That's all it is. When you hear that term, combating misinformation, replace it with undermining free speech. That's all it is.
Dee in Kingston in Tasmania. Dee, thanks so much for a great contribution to our conversation today. 1800 316 316. Send us a text on 0447 488 316, as Deborah has done. Says, hi, George and Neil. My comment is the government has not been strict enough about removing pornography from the internet, a blight on humanity and young people, and now they're suddenly so concerned about social media for under 16s. Yeah. I do understand, though, how social media is affecting young people in some instances, but hey, pornography is an addiction and a very dangerous one at that. It does seem to be a little bit of an inconsistency here, George. Have you got a comment?
Spot on. I mean, this was brought up in Parliament by actual parliamentarians, by senators. I think it was, it might have been Senator Matt Canavan that actually said about the YouTube ban, hey, you're proposing age verification for YouTube, where there's a whole heap of educational videos, and then your kids can go to YouTube and watch episodes of The Wiggles or segments of The Wiggles, and we're actually having age verification for that. But what happened to the age verification for sites like Pornhub? I mean, this is something that really is affecting kids today, because studies are showing that boys in particular are actually developing their sexual outlook, their education from these websites, which, has got nothing to do with normal relationships whatsoever. So there's harm going on there. I mean, quite honestly, for the fact that simply under 18 should not be looking at that material, of course. Why hasn't the government proposed age-verifying porn websites? Good question. I mean, is porn better than social media?
Well,
is that what we're saying?
That's where
honestly,
the inconsistency is here. Hey, thanks so much to Deborah for that text. Let's take another call. Ross is in Neil Park in Victoria. Hey, Ross, welcome along.
Oh, hello. Hi, Neil. Thank you. And also to George. Thank you for taking my call. I'd just like to express an opinion.
Is Ross on the line there, Neil, or have we lost him?
Yes, yes. Can you hear Ross? Ross, if you
can you hear me?
Yes, Ross. You say what is it you're saying, Ross?
I'm just trying to say that my opinion is that I'm okay with the government regulating the access of younger people to the social media. For example, I'm also okay for them to regulate the access to YouTube, and just observing kids going through that particular social media as an example. There are a lot of good things in there in terms of learning, but there are also a lot of silly things there that doesn't promote critical thinking in kids. And I think that's okay. Anything that the government can help me manage my children, my parenting, helping my parenting become easier, that's less problem for me to think about.
Ross, now, you're making a good point here. Let's just bring George in here. If you didn't hear everything that Ross was saying there, George, but the thought that he's okay with a lot of these regulations because it does help parents to take a little bit of charge within their own family to be able to control some of the things. And he's talking too about the thoughts that there are good things that develop critical thinking that these under 16s will miss being exposed to. I hope I've reflected that okay, Ross. But George, any thoughts here for Ross?
Look, I've got sympathy for this argument. Let me just, and I'll be as short as I can here, let me go back to the issue of porn and link it to what we're talking about here. So ages ago, under the Rudd government, there was a proposal that the government was going to have restricted access to harmful sites that included pornography. You would have to actually opt in with your ISP to actually get that, to access these sort of bad websites, as they were going to be known. The government actually abandoned those plans because it was all too hard, they said. And instead what they put in was something that I definitely agree with, and that was that they were going to have household education packs on how to do adult verification yourself in your own home. And I don't want government, being mum and dad for my kids, sure, help me with tools that can actually help me in my own household. And, parents right now can actually go to many of these platforms, including YouTube, and flick on age verification for their household alone, where there might be some secret code that as parents you put in there, and your kids don't have access to it, so they can't see it. Because I like that with my daughter. She sits there and watches YouTube, and I've got no issues if she's watching some wholesome sort of story, but when it's the mindless TikTok type feeds that just make kids brain dead and quite honestly, it's just like, stimulus, 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 stimulus without any story, without any moral, without any message. That does harm kids. And I would say every parent should take it upon themselves to actually police what's going on. You cannot rely on the government to do it, because if you're relying on the government to do it, what else are they going to be policing? What are they going to be steering your kids into? That needs to be very much thought about by every parent.
I want to thank Ross for his insight. Thank you so much, Ross. Hey, time is short now. We might be asking George, where to in the future around all of the things we're talking about today? Freedom's evaporating, the rise of a surveillance state. Have you got as we draw some loose ends together, what are your thoughts? Where are we headed? What's the future look like?
Well, sometimes you've got to look to see what's being pushed for. There's an outfit called Reset Tech here in Australia. They've been actually very influential in pushing ideas on Canberra about censorship of the internet, regulation of the internet. They're now urging the government to grant regulators what would be described as effective notice and takedown powers of any website in the country, plus the ability to redesign a core platform code. So that means that if you run a social media outfit, that the government could actually get in there and change the code and the way that it works. Now, that is bizarre. I can't see that happening. What I can see is that if that gets passed, social media companies will just simply remove Australia from their sort of purview. What it is code for is it's bureaucrat speak to hand us the keys to the internet, to all of your websites, all of your platforms, and we will run it and make sure no one gets hurt. And that's quite bizarre. It is dangerous, Neil, because it leads to bureaucrats who have a mindset that's glued to the current orthodoxy of all those sort of politically sacred cows that I talked about earlier, the LGBTIQ stuff and all the rest of it. And they're going to be looking out not for harms that you and I and all of your listeners consider harms, but harms to this new orthodoxy. And that's the danger for democracy. We will slide quickly into a population that just thinks exactly as the new orthodoxy wants it to think, because there is simply no pushback, because at every corner of the internet, the government and its regulators have removed that pushback from your view. That's the future if we don't stand up and do something about it, which is why I encourage people to go to citizengo.org and sign some of the petitions that we've got on these anti-free speech measures and these surveillance state measures. It's very important that we take a stand.
And Citizen Go, a really fabulous Christian foundation to a global organisation. And George
Yes.
Christensen, you're the campaigns director for Australia's Citizen Go. For listeners, citizengo.org, as George says, and there are a whole bunch of petitions there. If you wonder, how do you have a voice? Take advantage of when organisations like Citizen Go have an opportunity for you to actually put your name to something and give it some extra clout, because there's more names added to a list, and even if it's a list of protest, but you'll be able to pick and choose what sort of petitions you might want to sign. George Christensen, I want to thank you so much for taking some time to share with us your thoughts once again, and appreciate your insights and just not holding back. You have a different view than what so many people have, and takes us a little bit deeper, and certainly appreciate your insights today on 2020.
Thank you, Neil. God bless you.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this audio on demand from Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, go to vision.org.au.